What's up, everybody, and welcome to Pop Live. I just love that song for some reason. Like, I feel like it's very like Wayne's World, like. I want to say what's up to Brian, who we know is watching because we've been chatting with him on the comments. We noticed there was some stuttering earlier during the countdown. Hopefully, we are done with that and everything is running smoothly. Emmett is here with us. He's sleeping, but we're happy it's a Tuesday. We missed you. We didn't see you last week, right? So, you know, thanks for coming back and joining us. Today we are talking about legacy videos. So if you were watching on the countdown earlier, there was one of our Pop Love Story videos where it was the story of Ralph and Mylene. This is a kind of video that we do for weddings where the couple gets interviewed, or friends and family get interviewed, and they talk about the history of the couple to get people to know them better. And it's been really awesome for the couples to kind of get their story to their loved ones, because a lot of people, when you go to a wedding, you either know one or the other, or you don't quite know the history of them as a couple. And rather than hearing it in a speech or watching a 20-minute slideshow of photos, this is a really great way to hear in their voice, their story. And it's also a great keepsake for them afterwards, for like when they have children in the future and stuff, like that they can play for them and be like, this is how mom and dad met, and this is what grandpa thought about dad, or this is how, all that stuff. So it's been something that's been met with a lot of great positivity. And we were thinking about, how we could use this kind of platform to go beyond just weddings and beyond just like people who are getting married. And one thing that we see that we just cherish so much here in Hawaii is our kupuna, our parents and grandparents. And we always hear this about, wow, after, it's too late to get the stories from them. It's like, oh man, I wish I could have heard this story about, my loved one when they were growing up, or things about them that you wish you could hear. And most of the times you hear just the stories passed on, like, oh, your grandfather was so successful in this, or it was so funny, and this is, something that he always would tell us. And it would be just so neat to hear them say it in their own words. And in fact, my grandfather, I hold very near and dear to my heart. He passed when I was 7 or 8 years old. But the school he went to, Punahou School, did a written interview, or a verbal. It's like I don't know what it was for, but somebody from the alumni group interviewed him, and they just
for the bulletin.
I don't think it's for the bulletin. I don't know what it was for, but it's like a 2-page interview, and it's basically they typed out the questions and then they typed out his answers that he gave to them verbally. And in it has some really neat, stories and stuff. It's short. It's only 2 pages, but he talks about, like his family life and his childhood and where he grew up and things like that, like his young adult life, stuff that I didn't hear from him. And some of the stories I didn't hear from, my mom or my uncles. And it's one of like the most treasured things in our family, like where we can still feel like we got to hear from him or jump into his mind and things like that. And to know now that it's like, wow, if we could do something like that but in video form, where we can see them, hear them, go deeper into these stories, because basically it was just like pre-written questions, and it wasn't like any follow-up questions like, what was your first job? And he says the job, and they don't go, oh, what? Tell me what was involved in that. It's just like, my first job was da 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 da, or in $5, stuff like that. So that's why we've come up with this idea to do legacy videos, and the idea that we have this, wonderful opportunity to interview loved ones, family members now while they're still alive, and get their stories, and capture them and preserve them in form of videos that we've created. So the thing is, we haven't done one yet because we just thought of it, recently. So we thought, and it's such a new and foreign concept that we thought we'd talk about it here today. Maybe some of you might have some thoughts and ideas as well of what you would want. But the idea is to talk about it, introduce this idea in hopes that many of you will think of your family members or somebody that you think would be, possibly interested in this, and connect us, because we'd love to start capturing and sharing these stories. We did something similar for a television station where we were interviewing, kupuna here in Hawaii, but it was a short form kind of video. Is very short. I think like we had to keep it under 3 minutes, and it was very focused on, like, there had to be like a focus of the story that we're trying to capture. But the idea of interviewing these seniors and tapping into their memories and experiences is kind of what was the great joy that we got from it. And there's so many, like, even though the video segment was like 3 minutes long, sometimes we'd interview them for, like, I don't know, 45 minutes or so, and we'd hear some of the most wonderful stories, and we couldn't use any of them because it didn't fit or it didn't flow into the narrative that in the focus of this video. But we're just like, man, there's certain ones where we were like, oh, I think the family members would really love and cherish these stories, and like we wanted to give it to them, but because it was for us, like, we didn't have ownerships or rights to this footage, so we couldn't give it to them. But knowing that we had those experiences, like, we are confident that we could now do this for families and people here that would just, be totally blessed by it and love it. And how many times do we hear about it, like, after the fact, right? Like, oh, I wish, like, I think you interviewed, like, your grandpa or something like that, and your family, and this was before you had any kind of experience doing these kind of videos and stuff, right? Where we're talking about capturing multiple stories and stuff from them, and including photos and stuff that they give us and stuff, like, really making it a nice keepsake. But for you, I don't know, did you have, I didn't see the thing that you made, but it was a long time ago. So is it similar to what we're doing now, or?
It is like really terrible quality.
Oh.
It's like right after, was it during college? No,
Oh,
I
wow,
didn't.
that long ago.
Did I have a camera during college? It's a really terrible looking camera, and my mom just wanted to interview them, my grandma and grandpa. So I don't even know if we had a mic.
Oh.
It was really bad. And then I was so upset with my mom as the interviewer, because she kept, because the idea was to, like, make a documentary out of it, and she kept, when they were talking, she'd keep going, oh, oh. And I was like, dude, I can't use any of this footage. So that's what happened with that.
So just know that we're professional interviewers now. and I
You're much
wouldn't do that.
better than
Yeah.
mom.
No disrespect to grandma, but for real, like if you look at all of our videos, you don't hear any of them with me going, "Oh, yeah," 'cause I know how to do it. But I think because we especially here in Hawaii, we cherish so much our kupuna and just the stories that they have and the knowledge that they have and the experience that they have, and like we take it for granted because we hear it all the time. But like how much would so many times I've had the experience of my younger cousins who didn't have the privilege of being alive or old enough to remember my grandfather when he was alive. And when we get together for family get-togethers, it's like 10 times out of 10, at least one time in our get-together, the subject will come up of my one of my younger cousins asking like, tell me a memory of Gungung, like what was he like? Because they just hear from their parents like the legend of my grandfather, and they just like are so hungry and thirsty for and wish that they could have had that experience. And so uh, I would love to have just been like, instead of me telling you about him, like, here,
Yeah.
why don't you watch this and see and hear him and hear his stories straight from his lips. And so the thing with the legacy videos, the idea that we have is it can take many different forms. It doesn't have to be straight up just one way where it's just interviewing a single person. Like it could be the couple, like your parents together, and they can share their stories of their life together and things like that. It could get even deeper with like their siblings and other family members talking about them. Like the scope of who can be involved and included in this in these legacy videos can be as basic as one person or span multiple people. And where the love story videos is centered strictly on the love story, the legacy videos is going to be more of like a collection of stories that don't necessarily relate to each other. It's just like a collection of a person's life or a couple's life. And it doesn't have to be like, oh, we're only talking about this one thing. Like it's going to be like when we did our interviews with the seniors for that old show, like I was just like,
For that old show?
oh, sorry. I mean, like that show that we did long
Before.
ago. Yeah. Not new show,
Oh
old
my
show. Not like
god.
old in age.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
meant like,
We had to clarify
yeah.
that.
Well, if you weren't thinking it was interpreted that way, now you do because of that reaction. So thanks. But for that one, like, the reason why the interview spanned so long many of the times was because we were just like jumping from all different types of subjects. And just so you know how the interview goes, it's basically, if you ever listen to my podcast, Hanging Out with Nolan Hong, and obviously that I'm not reading a script or a list of questions.
You don't read.
and it just like is a free flowing conversation, like a getting to know you conversation that answers, is it beget other questions or whatever the term is. Um, I knew it was a mistake trying to use a word I didn't know the meaning of, but it would have sounded so intelligent if I used it right. But that's how the interview process goes for
I think
these.
you actually did almost. It's like beget, but
Yeah.
it was just a weird word to use. Like, why would you use that word when you're just talking?
Because I want to sound, one, I want to sound intelligent, and two, it'll keep people's attention because they'll be like, oh, talk. Ooh, what word was that? That's interesting. It worked. You obviously now are really dialed into whatever the heck I
Am
said.
I?
Well, the word you were. Anyways, so the way the interview process works, it's very unintimidating. So like when you see our videos, a lot of people make the comment of like, wow, it looks so professional and so beautiful and stuff. And the people on there, they look like they're so comfortable and things. And I'm not like that. And I wouldn't come across that well on camera. The people that are in all of these videos, I'd say like what, 90% of them,
Don't want to be on
they
camera.
yeah, they
Like
always
95.
yeah, they always are like
Did
really
anybody
resistant.
be okay? Was anybody okay being on camera?
There are some people, I mean, because they've had experience before, but for the most part, the majority of people we interview
Don't want to be there.
have not done it before and don't want to be there. But the way we keep it comfortable and relaxing is one, it's a small crew. It's just me and Jamie. Very minimal. I mean, to them, it's still big time because it's like, whoa, a light, a camera. But that's pretty much it. It's not like there's crew all around and like sound people and all that stuff. It's just a small, intimate setting. And then the way we conduct interviews is just a real personal one-on-one kind of conversation where I'm just having a conversation with the person. The key is that unlike a normal conversation where I would go, "Oh, really? Mm-hmm. Yeah." I don't do all that because, for the editing purposes, as Jamie's story illustrated. But um, I because I don't have like this pre-written list of questions, I'm locked in and engaged in the conversation. I'm listening to what stories and things they have to say, which then will fuel the inspiration for the next things I ask. And a lot of the times it's the follow up questions that I get from being able to pay attention to the conversation. And that those follow up questions is what we get like the real deep, juicy stuff of the stories versus like shallow stories, which is what, kind of comes across as generic. So for those of you who are curious about like, well, I don't want to stress my parents out. I would love for them to share these stories, but that sounds like a lot of stress. Like, I just want you to understand how it goes, and for many people, it's a not as stressful. I don't want to say it's stress less because I mean, let's be honest, it's still you still know you're talking to a stranger, but almost every single time when it's over and we say cut and we stop the recording, they go, "Oh, that was way better than I thought." Like, and not to this isn't a point for me to like toot my own horn, but they'll say, "You're really good." Like that, I didn't even feel like we were recording. When did we start? Things like that, and that's what we aim for is that kind of reaction and feeling and experience. What are some things that you um, think are of value for people who are hearing about us talking about legacy videos, and why you think, because obviously you thought that this was a good idea, otherwise we wouldn't have pushed this out. Why do you think it's a good idea to do legacy videos?
Um, I think so. Both of my popo my po oh, he's my grandpa, but we call him Popo. He's Filipino. I don't know why. I know it's grandma in Chinese, but my grandma is Chinese, so we call her grandma. But my Popo died when Trent was 6 months, and grandma died when Wes was 6 months.
Oh.
So, and I just feel like they would have really, I think Wes especially would have really enjoyed my grandma
Hmm.
because she's so rascal, and I think he would have found that hilarious. And it makes me so sad that he doesn't get to meet her. Like, well, he met her, but not,
He doesn't remember.
he doesn't remember, and he wouldn't get to see that rascal side of her. And I feel like when people do talk about oral history and stuff, a lot of
Hmm.
times it is written, or like it just doesn't get the same. It's not the same,
The rich in history,
yeah, as
because you
like
don't see the
hearing
the
it.
life in their eyes, like You don't hear
And the
the
thing with my grandma
intonation.
was her cackle, like the way she would just laugh. And this is really terrible.
You gotta say it now.
She's really hard of hearing, like me. Like she had really bad hearing, and sometimes at the table she would fart and think nobody could hear it, and it was just so funny. But she would like tease people, like playing cards, like telling Dave not to cry, and then laugh at him when she takes his money. But so it's just these little things about her personality that you would never be able to get it without a video. and and I wish that my kids could get that, and they can maybe from that terrible footage. But and I think also, like, I interviewed her for a school project on like a tape recorder,
Hmm.
maybe in like third grade or something. But I didn't know what I was doing. Like I was not a good interviewer as an 8-year old. So I think having a video and somebody who's good at interviewing, it would just be so much better of a thing that the kids would actually want to watch.
Yeah,
Like it's not like I'm making them listen to this cassette recording. Like it would be something entertaining for them.
yeah,
and and when it's short, if it's like short stories, short bits, then it's like a YouTube thing. Like, oh, I'll just watch my grandma for 2 minutes and then move on to something else.
yeah. And that's the thing, the key to why having a professional company like us that specializes in creating videos out of people's stories is knowing how to not only capture the story properly, and whether that being from the tech side of the quality of image and sound, but also the interview of getting the story out, but then also being able to um, I don't want to say edit it, but I mean it is editing, but being able to piece together the things so that it's a cohesive, like a rather than, because what I imagine, some people I've known who have just like got their phone, put it on a little like phone holder, and then done an interview just to, because they like, oh, I want to remember, mom's story or something, and it's just like this uncut long interview, and it's nice to see and hear the person, but it kind of just, you feel
Wow.
like you're just like this fly on the wall, like, oh. So having someone with the skills like Jamie has to piece it together, cut out, trim the fat, so to speak, so that it keeps it engaging and interesting. That's a huge value, And so I know that there's been cases where people do something like that themselves, or their kid for their school project will do a video like that. And while that's cute and it's a great experience for them, I don't think it's gonna be of the same quality and get the same kind of,
Stories.
yeah, that you would from something like a pop creative media legacy video, you know? So, oh, Brian says it's a gimbal. I learned from your last live.
Brian's paying attention.
Yeah. um, so, of course, as I mentioned, like this style of video can take different forms. And so it's not like, okay, it's one, like, here's the package or anything like that. So a lot of the times, especially even with like the love story videos that we do, we meet with the couple or meet with the family, get an idea of what we're dealing with, and then we create, a type of video of, as far as like who to interview, what to include in there. That's how we make and decide what the video will be about and look like. So same would be for the legacy video. It's something that we work with the families on, to make it where it's customized to what what your needs and desires are.
I think people might be like, they might think like, oh, my grandpa is not interesting enough or something like this. Like,
Hmm.
what would you say to that?
So that is usually what we hear from several groups of people. Like for any time I ask someone to be on my podcast, their first reaction is, "Oh, but I'm so boring. Like, you don't want to interview me. What am I going to talk about?" And every single time, people will hear him like, "I love that interview that you did with so and so. Such an interesting person." And I'll tell that person, like, remember when you said that you're too boring to be on the podcast? People said that they just thought your stories were absolutely, fascinating. Like, really? What's so interesting about it? That's just my life. They do that kind of stuff. And so there's that. And then also people who uh, are that we interview for videos, they'll be like, you can interview this person, but and I mean they'd be the one to talk to about such a subject, but I don't know. I mean, they've never done this before, so I don't know if they'll be any good on camera and stuff. It's a really small percentage, not, but it does happen. But it's a really small percentage of the hundreds of people that we interview for video interviews. There's just a handful that we're at the end we're like, ooh, they were right. That person is terrible. Like,
But I think if they were talking about their life,
yeah.
it would, like, they couldn't talk about the thing that we were talking about.
Mm,
But if, like this, if the subject was just them, it would have been different.
yeah, I agree. So when it comes to talking about your own life and your own story, I think there's a really, really high chance that it's still that it'll come across really great and interesting. As far as them, the argument like, oh, they're boring, they don't have any good stories. Like, if they've been alive for more than 10 years,
Yeah.
you're going to have tons of stories and experiences that are unique to them. That would be interesting. Like, I just can't imagine a human being that has zero interesting things that happen to them in their life.
Especially when you're at the age of being the subject of a legacy video.
Yeah.
Then, like, I think even so, like, we interviewed Mary Cook for that other project,
Mm-hmm.
and she's had an amazing life, of course, but for me the most interesting stories were like super normal stories, like how she gave her husband $5 at the altar because he had bet her that one day she would marry him, and she was like, no way.
And so
So
he said, I'll
she,
bet you $5
yeah,
that we'll get married.
so she paid him at the altar, which is like nothing to do with her crazy
Professional
family and
career. Yeah.
professional. It's just about like little stories that are so interesting.
That was our favorite
Yeah,
story. And I think we had to
we
cut it,
couldn't
right?
use it because it didn't relate to the
Like
what ended up
her
being the subject
career and
of.
yeah. And I was like, this
Yeah,
is the best story ever.
yeah.
I so wish I could have
I know.
shared that with our
Anyway,
family.
yeah.
But yeah, so I don't think people realize like the most meaningful stories and interesting stories are the most a lot of times.
Mundane.
Yeah, like it doesn't have to be the Oprah Winfrey special expose story. You know what I mean?
You
Like,
don't have to have like a super crazy job or
no.
accomplish things.
And what your parent may think is like, oh, it's so boring, it's so normal. It's not, because
Yeah.
we weren't living in their shoes, and like it so many times when I interview people for my podcast and I find out what they do, and I'm like, oh, can we have you on? It's so fascinating, what you do for a living or whatever. And like, why? It's, I don't know, I've been a whatever it is for so long, like, and no one's ever asked me about it. I'm like, well, they should. It's like, I don't know anyone else who's done that before.
Hi, Jill.
Hey, Jill's here. Brian said that he's had a hard time too being interviewed, and always spends a couple weeks after, like, I should have said this or that, which is normal. But I would say that when
It's because you didn't have good follow up questions,
yeah,
probably.
I don't I
He
don't
doesn't
want to,
want to toot his own horn.
but seriously, that's where I think a lot of the times
It's
it's
part of the person doing the interview. Like, um, Nolan's been doing a lot of interviewing.
didn't we do like a count of how many interviews I did? I think it was for last year, right?
We did a year.
And
It was a lot.
it
I
was
don't
some
remember.
crazy amount that like I thought 20 would be a large amount, but I think it was like two or three times that amount.
Yeah.
Oh, Jill said she waved back. uh, well, you and Kat Toth's husband Kai did the same. So you have company, Jill. Don't worry. But thanks for popping in, Jill. Um, Jill, you know what? Your dad would be a fantastic subject for a legacy video. We should talk. Anyways.
It would be
Yeah.
hilarious.
So yeah, Brian, going back to your point of having difficulty being interviewed, I would love to have a chance to. Actually, we have somewhat interviewed you for Pop Live when we had you on to talk about your MHAH virtual event. But that wasn't an interview about you and your life. It was more
Yeah.
about the event. I should have you on my podcast, Brian, if you are willing. Let's set that up because I think that'd be fantastic to have you on the podcast.
And it's only audio, so you don't have to worry about eye bags.
Or a shiny forehead or whatever else we all worried about. Yeah, um so as far as the legacy videos idea goes, like if you have any kind of reservations but you think that there would be some kind of value to it and it would be interesting, but you have this reservation, talk to us because I'm pretty sure that most of these reservations are not valid or would not get in the way of a really great video.
Yeah.
So Brian said fourth and seventh chins, etc. And Brian said he's willing, but just to prove how awful he is. And I am going to prove how not awful you are and how awesome you are. I wouldn't ask you if I didn't think that you were fascinating and would be great for the podcast. I've only had, I think, 2 episodes out of 180 episodes where I went, oh, yeah, that didn't go so well. So, and I now know the red flags to look for, and you don't have any of those. But if you're watching this, and not Brian, just anyone, whoever, if you're watching this, and this is something that that you think would be interesting for your family member, and that you would be interested in checking out doing, so Jamie and I, we don't ever price our things like more than what like the minimal cost it costs for us
We're
to
very
do
bad
it.
at pricing.
Yeah, like for example, if we were selling hamburgers and it cost us, $4 to make the hamburger, we would charge like $4.25. Like
If the materials for the hamburger.
yeah. And it's like, oh man, we're not making any money off of this. Like we always try to find the minimal amount that we can charge for things.
Yeah, like nonprofits will ask us if we have nonprofit pricing.
Yeah, and we're like,
oh,
all of our pricing is nonprofit pricing. So with that being said, for the legacy videos, we know that we are going to be pricing it kind of like how we normally do, but we wanted to do a special rate for the first one that we do because, like I said, we haven't done a legacy video yet. So although we can't afford to, give discounts, we will, and we'll basically be doing this at a loss for us, because one, we want to do one, and because we haven't done one yet, We see the value in like, well, yes, we might be losing money producing it at a discount. It's a value for us because now then we'll have one to use as an example, to share with others, to incentivize others to hire us to do a video for them. So we are going to be offering a special discounted rate for the first legacy video that we book. And so if you are interested, reach out to us now, because if you are the first one, you're going to get a much, I don't want to say much, a cool discount, a great discount, where it would never be this price for anyone else moving forward. So yeah, reach out to us. And as far as if you're like, well, how much does a legacy video cost? That's the thing, is because I mentioned that it can span different scopes of work, as far as like how many people you're interviewing and all that kind of stuff, like what goes into it. Do we want to include photos? Do we want to include actual b-roll footage of them doing activities, that things like that? Like, the scope of work can vary, and that's what impacts the cost. So we would be talking to you about what you would want, and then we can give you a price quote. But do we give them just like that, what we did for the love story videos, like it start, or did we say the average, or it starts? I think
We said starts for love stories, but that we can't use that same number because that includes the B-roll shoot
Okay.
and it's a two-person interview.
Okay. Well,
So we don't know. We should have done math before.
I would just say it's at least gonna be a couple $1,000s. I mean, that's very low. I don't think it's even gonna be that low. But I know for me, as a layman person, back before I even got into the video industry, I just had zero idea of
Yeah.
budgets, and I probably would have asked, like, what is it, a couple $100s? No, this is a significant investment. At least a couple $1,000 or more. But considering what the value of it is that you're getting out of it, then that kind of helps put it into perspective. But just know that because it is so priced as such, the discount would be really of significant value, because, as I mentioned, this is the only time we'll ever go below our at cost price. So yeah, contact us. You can either leave a comment in the comment section to contact you, or you can DM us or email us, and I'll give Jamie a chance to pull this up.
Should we say anything about COVID? Like,
Oh,
what if
okay.
people are worried about COVID?
Okay, yeah, we'll do that after I bring this up. So
Oh.
you can email us at info@popcm.me, and we can start the conversation there. But yeah, that's a great point. So what would you...
Like, if people want to, like, wait until... What?
Just straight up yawning in
I
my
felt
face.
like y'all...
No, I'm gonna do it. Go on. No, just kidding. So, okay, that's a great point about COVID. So what about COVID?
Like, if people are worried about exposing their people to us because of COVID, and you want to, like, wait till later, but then you don't know when later. So the thing, oh, this is sad now. So we had thought about doing like a family picture with my, like, a professional photography thing. And then we're like, I don't know why, but we put it off. And then within that time, my grandpa went into hospice. So that was just like awful.
Tragic
Yeah.
loss.
So we never did
opportunity,
it. Yeah. So I think you don't want to wait for this kind of thing because you never know what might happen. And we're both vaccinated, and we do our shoot, like, we've been doing interviews for a while now within the pandemic, and
And we follow really strict procedures.
Yeah.
So even though we're both vaccinated, we're both masked with medical grade masks the whole
I
time.
double mask because the medical ones pull my ears forward and they hurt, but I double mask.
And we keep a minimum 6 feet distance between ourselves and the interview subject. So, and then we sanitize the mics and stuff, and the mics are wireless, so like they're also not tethered to us and things. And we we go to the location to shoot. So usually it's in places that you or they are comfortable in. Like it could be in your home, or there's you're not stuck to like, oh, they have to go to like a studio that's, you don't know the safety of that place or
Yeah.
cleanliness and all that stuff. And it's convenient because we come to you. You're in your comfortable environment wherever you choose to do it. So
And it's just us two.
yeah, there's not like multiple people like I mentioned on our crew and staff. So while it's never a sure thing. Like we do take COVID safety and precautions extremely seriously, and then I'm high risk, so if not just for your safety, for my own, like I have my own selfish reasons why we're very strict on our health and safety protocols. So yeah, that those are the things to kind of be comforted by, and knowing that we take it very seriously for your comfort and your safety for our shoots. Anything else that you can think of about this? Oh, I want to say this, and I think you're gonna go, "Oh my gosh!" So I'm worried, but old people love me.
It's true.
So you can be comforted in knowing that your elderly are in great hands with me. For some reason, old folks just love to talk
It's
to
totally
me.
your devil.
Yeah.
Yeah, they love you.
To prove this fact, I worked for a year and a half at the Holy Nativity thrift shop in Aina, which was the my job was to manage a thrift shop that was run solely by elderly volunteers. We had a team
You
of
have to
like
say the age.
we had a team of 25 volunteers, and they were all a minimum of I think 68 years or older. And they were Caucasian, Japanese, Chinese, Filipino, Polynesian, like all like we had an Irish, like we had the whole gamut of elderly. And when I left that job, like we all were crying, and they still
They
keep in
have
touch with
your
me.
picture.
Yeah, they have
They
my
have your
picture on the
picture up.
wall, and they email me, and some of them
Call
call me.
you.
Like that, if that doesn't prove,
They send him pictures of the puzzles that they finished.
yeah. And I'm like, this is a 5,000 piece puzzle that came in, and here we finished it. There was one piece missing, wouldn't you know? It's like, stuff like that. So just know that, you know, and Jamie can attest to this. Like we'll be out in public, and old Japanese
Oh
people
yeah.
will come up to me like, "Hey, you the kind from the commercials? Hey, you
Even
pretty
with
good."
masks on.
Yeah, like they all just recognize me, and they just start talking story with me because they recognize me from TV commercials and stuff. It's just I don't know. So I always joke, but it's true. But I was like telling you, man, old people love
They
me.
do. They really do.
So I think that's another reason why these interviews with the
Yeah.
kapuna like really come across great, because they feel a sense of comfort. And I think it's because one, I had such a close relationship with my grandfather. Like I feel like I just feel like I'm still connecting with him through these experiences. And I think I also have like an old soul, and my mom raised me to really respect my elders, like super more like over the top respect them. So I think I just carry myself that way, that they feel like, oh, this guy, as much as they think I'm this young guy, which I'm not anymore.
I know. Brian said he thought that you're going to say 50 and older for the old people. I'm almost 50.
Yeah, like I'm what I would have considered old. But for some reason, the elderly think I'm a young guy,
I know.
and but I think they just sense the way that I carry myself around them, that I do carry that respect, but also that genuine, like, I don't know, interest in talking to them. Like, it's not like a respect of like, hello sir, good day. It's like that I actually care about, like, hey, how you doing? Like, tell me more about your life. Like, I really want to know. So Brian says he's practically knocking on Medicare's door. Oh my gosh, Brian. See, this is why I'm excited to
I'm
have you on
pretty
the
sure
podcast.
we're like the same age.
Yeah. What does that say about us? But yeah, so I'm glad that she didn't get offended when I said that, because I really wanted to pull my old people love me card, and I didn't want to say it without sounding offensive. All right, anything else that you can think of?
Meow.
I really hope that we can do one of these really soon, because like I said, like when we were doing that other, not old, that other video show, like I loved doing those interviews, and I missed that part,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And I remember just thinking, like, at the time before we started producing the show, like when we were doing the first couple interviews, I was like, oh, this is so cool. Like, this is really awesome. So I would just, on a selfish personal level, I would just love to do these kind of projects. Like, I think we have such a passion for it. And
I would like to do it because with the other one, we had the broader audience and the network in mind as the target.
mm-hmm.
But doing this with
Oh,
the family's best interest as the goal would be
yeah.
super awesome.
Yeah. So if you're watching this or listening to this and you can think, oh, there's this person in my family, or my family would really be blessed by such a thing. Um, Again, even regardless of all of your reservations, the cost, the like worry about the person being boring or whatever, just reach out to us and let's just talk, because I really think that it's at least worth the conversation and the consideration. Yeah. And if you're the first one, you get like super good rate. Sorry, it's a Chinese in me. The cost is always like really important. Brian, do you have any questions? I know that if you did, you would have said it a long time ago.
I
But
don't know if he's driving. I hope you
oh, that's right.
parked.
Yeah. How are you? How are you commenting
Maybe
so
he's
much?
doing the voice to talk voice.
If so, you've got a really good voice recognition
Yeah,
software.
that's true.
But yeah, if you're watching this on demand and stuff, and you have questions, things, again, just email us info@popcm.me, or leave a comment in the comment section below. And Brian, I'm glad to hear that you
Yeah.
parked and are back at your desk. I'm going to shoot you an email like very shortly, so that we can set up this podcast, because this is going to be awesome. In fact, maybe we should just do it now since you're there. Anyway, I'll reach out to you. And for the rest of you, thank you so much for joining us. It's so great to be back. I know we missed last week, but last week was insane. Speaking of old folks, but last week was insane, but we're back now. And I don't know what we are going to be talking about next week, but I think we had an idea about something. I think we were gonna have a guest. Anyways, if you have any thoughts or ideas or questions of things that you would like to have us cover in future episodes of Pop Live, send them our way, because we we usually come up with the ideas 24 hours or less in advance, and then we scramble and do very little preparation, and then this is what you get. But for some reason, people like Brian still watch, so it obviously must still be good. But yeah, we'd love to talk about things that you want to hear about or know about. And a lot of the times, if we know in advance, we can get guests that are experts and can bring relevant information to the pop live. So the more in advance we have this idea, the better chance we can have of people coming on. So thank you so much. We hope you have a great rest of your week. Brian, Jill, thank you for chatting with us in the comments. It honestly, the comments really add so much like fuel and to our fire. Like when we don't see comments, it like sucks the soul out of any life. So you guys being here every week just really makes a huge difference. So thank you so much. I want you to know just how much you mean to this show and how much we appreciate it. But we'll see you next week. I think we'll be back on Tuesday at 12:30 Hawaii Standard Time. But if not, we'll let you guys know in advance. It might be like a few hours in advance, but we'll let you know in advance. All right. So that's it. I'm waiting for Jamie to start getting close to the
I'm
buttons.
gonna try pressing the end button. I don't know if it's gonna work. I'm not sure if it's programmed correctly.
Ooh, this is exciting for Brian because he loves when things go wrong. So there's a great chance that something's going to go wrong here. So take care, goodbye, and let's see what happens.